Hello, everyone. Howard Gearhauser here. On the line, you have my dad, Dr. G. Can you hear me okay, Dad?
Yes.
Great. So let's jump into today's video episode. We want to talk about the dark side of pharmaceutical drugs. Pharmaceutical drugs or prescription drugs is a topic that we touch on quite a bit because it's something that really seems to have taken Western culture by storm. A lot of people are on prescription medication for various conditions. But as many of you probably know, there's a lot of side effects, one being mortality when it comes to prescription drugs. So we just wanted to touch on some of these statistics so you can be informed on whether or not this is a route that you want to take. So Dad, can you just explain a little bit more about what the heck's going on with all of the prescription drug use here in our country and in Western nations?
Okay. The prescription drug use, there are side effects. There are studies that estimate, how many people are actually harmed by drugs. And it's interesting, but the Centers for Disease Control, that's, a government entity that's supposed to be in charge of our health. So the CDC, Centers for Disease Control, if you look at their top 10 causes of death, drugs are not there. So you look at, heart attacks and cancer and strokes and, I don't know what number 4 is, but if you look at, the top 15 causes of death, drugs aren't there. But back in the year 2000, a physician, a respected physician, published in the Journal of the American Medical Association that through her research, she found that, well, every year, unnecessary surgeries kill 12,000 people. There's 7,000 deaths from errors made in the hospital. There's 20,000 deaths from other medical errors. There's 80,000 deaths a year from an infection you get in the hospital. And then 106,000 deaths per year in a side effect of a prescribed drug that was properly prescribed. So that total number of deaths, and this is inpatients, so people in the hospital, total number of deaths per year at 225,000. So that would put these medical errors, including the drug errors, as the third leading cause of death. Yet, the CDC, our government, who's supposed to protect us, doesn't really even acknowledge this is happening. So it takes physicians kind of outside the system, even though she was a respected researcher, but it takes someone to go, hey, we're ignoring all of these deaths. In fact, it's one of the leading causes of death. And then if you go back and look at the CDC, how do they decide, what caused that person's death? So let's say you're in the hospital and you die, okay, and you have, some disorder, you have pneumonia, and so they come in and they were giving you an antibiotic that maybe could have a fatal allergic reaction, and the doctor comes in. And so the doctor there, even if it's just the intern on call at midnight, he decides the cause of death. There's like no science involved. What did he die of, doc? And he just out of his head comes up with a number. And if he doesn't, who decides how they died? The funeral director. So the reliability of, there is no reliability of why did someone die? So we have these statistics that are taken from a lot of different studies that I just went through that are much more reliable than what the government hands us, a list of causes of death. Well, if you think about it, you come in to the hospital room of somebody who has had a heart attack and they died, and maybe they died because the nurse suffocated them, or something. They died because the nurse gave them the wrong drug or whatever. The doctor on call is going to say, oh, he has a heart attack? Well, no wonder he died. He died of a heart attack. And they don't really investigate, why did he really die? And the reason I'm mentioning all this is the deaths from medicine that I just mentioned, the 106,000 of properly prescribed drugs, is probably the tiny tip of the iceberg.
Well, you had your own health scare when you hit your head snowboarding and then had the internal bleeding within your brain, like, was that 5 or 6 years ago? And because of something they did in the ICU, they gave you a drug to prevent blood clotting, but your brain was bleeding. So you intuitively knew that that doesn't really add up. However, your first time in the ICU, you're kind of trusting what the doctors are doing. And then you have to go and have a repeat surgery because your brain didn't stop bleeding because of that drug. I mean, this sounds like it's pretty common. Can you just touch on that experience a little bit more and what you learned from that?
Yeah, so I have, like probably a lot of you out there, I have elderly relatives, and I often go to their doctor's visits with them or go to the hospital with them or visit them in the hospital. And you pick up so many errors, it's unbelievable. But yeah, for even myself, being a doctor, they come in to inject heparin into my stomach when I have a brain bleed going on. And I go, well, are you sure that's what I'm supposed to get? And they go, hey, it's protocol. Everybody in the ICU gets heparin. So I let them do it. Well, I went through the bleed again, had another surgery, another stint in the ICU. They come that next time to give me heparin, a blood thinner. And I go, get away from me. Get away from me. And so I told my neurosurgeon, I said, my brain hasn't stopped bleeding. And they came in today to give me a shot of heparin in my stomach. And I refused it. And he goes, that's probably a good idea. So it's just kind of a mindless system. And we all need someone with us. I mean, it'd be better if you have medical experience, but even if you don't have medical experience, you can, because my wife was with me and she picked up a lot of things that might have harmed me. Now, again, the CDC says no one's killed by medical errors. Of course, that's not true. But there's another physician that did a study that was published in the Journal of Patient Safety. And so he went through all kinds of data to really drill down to how many people die in the hospital from something that was totally preventable. Like, with me, if they hadn't given me if I'd have died from my second bleed, which I almost did, it might have been preventable not to give someone who's bleeding heparin. Maybe think about it first at least. But he concluded there's 400,000 of those deaths per year in the United States. So again, that would be up around the second or third leading cause of death in the country. Yet, does our government even try to come up with these statistics? No, it's people outside the system have to do this research. Now, there's another research that's a little more out there as far as alternative, and it was quite a while back, but Gary Null is a nutritionist, and he commissioned a group of physicians and scientists to try to look at how many people do doctors in the medical system kill every year. And he estimated it to be about 800,000 a year would be the leading cause of death. And he felt that those estimates were very conservative. So it could be that by far, the leading reason we die is our medical system. And so that's why we'd like you all to think about alternatives first, if at all possible.
So I agree with you that this seems like a systemic issue, not like individual doctors don't want their patients to do better. I think doctors, a lot of them get into the field because they do want to help people. Of course, they want to make good money too. I think that's part of it. But it's almost like the doctors get trapped in a way. It's like if you don't follow the standard of care and prescribe drugs and someone ends up dying or their condition worsens, now you're liable for it. So you're almost, your back's against the wall as a physician to step outside of the system. What inspired you as a physician to say, screw it? I care more about my patient and my client's health than worrying about putting them on drugs.
Well, that's one of the reasons I've shifted over to health coaching, so I can I don't have to worry about that issue of, oh, I'm breaking the rules, which is breaking the laws. If you use something besides a drug and you're a patient, and that's what the standard of care is in the community where you live, that's what most of the state laws are on the practice of medicine. So you're breaking a law, and you could lose your license or you could get sued. So there's a huge incentive for doctors to toe the line, to do what the big gurus say to do, which is usually the algorithm. They develop the algorithm. Oh, if they have this, you give this drug. And usually those gurus work for the drug company. And so that brings me to another issue is, our pharmaceutical system is really, I guess you could compare it to organized crime. So the pharmaceutical system here, and I didn't come up with this. This is Peter Gauch. So Peter Gauch was head of the Cochrane Review. So the Cochrane Review is a scientific organization that looks at all the data for, let's say, some procedure in medicine, let's say open heart surgery, looks at all the data and go, should we do open heart surgeries or not? Like, do we save anyone by doing open heart surgeries? So that's what the Cochrane Review does. They look at all the research that's available and they pour through every detail of it. Then they go, yes, this has evidence to prove that we should do this. No, this doesn't. So Peter Gauch was ahead of that. Well, he wrote a book called Deadly Medicine and Organized Crime, and how big pharma has really corrupted the healthcare system. And what he says is, okay, what does the mob do? Well, they make insane amounts of money. Pharmaceutical industry, they can up the price of what it takes to make the pill by 5,000%, 20,000%. So they can mark drugs way up because they have a monopoly on the drugs, because they bribe, okay? They bribe politicians so they get the law in their favor that they can have a monopoly to sell their drug. It's the only way you can sell one pill for $30 a pill, is to have a monopoly on it. So the other side effect of the mob is a lot of people die. A lot of people are injured. And that's the other thing. He says, well, pharmaceutical industry, we just said it, it's one of the leading causes of death. Properly prescribed drugs is one of the leading causes of death in America. So, Peter Gauch, very respected scientist. So it's not just me saying this. So this is an issue that, we need to change the laws to make it better, to change the system. But when the pharmaceutical companies are still making all this money and still can pour all this money into lobbying and all the other things that they do, pour the money into the experts, so they're on the bankroll of the drug company, and they're the ones who decide the algorithm of, okay, you use this drug. Well, couldn't we use sun exposure for that first step instead of a drug? And he goes, well, the company I work for, flew me out here, gave me a week in Hawaii, they're not going to do it. It's a big part of their income, and it just isn't going to happen. So it's, as Howard mentioned, it's not the individual doctor's fault. I played the game for 37 years, did what I was supposed to do. I did a lot of alternative medicine, but I had to go on and on about, well, but the standard of care, which I have to have you sign a thing saying that you understand the standard of care in the community is I should give you this drug and this drug and this drug, but we're going to forego that and have people sign releases every day. Wore me out. So it's great to get to health coaching where I don't have to toe the line for this absurd issue with, well, you got to follow the standard of care of people that don't know anything about the causes of disease. They don't look at the latest research on circadian rhythm or sun exposure or toxins in the environment. All these things that are critically important, they're not speculation,
Yeah, and it can be a full-time job if you're someone who is a Googler and YouTuber who likes to just go and find information and implement it and kind of see how your body and mind responds. It's a full-time job because there's so much research and there's a ton of new research that's pouring out every single day. So our mission and purpose, the way we see it, is to inform you guys, for us to do the research, digest it, and give it to you in a way where you can actually implement it in your life. If you are someone who is on prescription medication, who's struggling with a different, various health condition, you might want to consider looking into working with us as a health coaching client. I'll put a link below where you can go check that out. I'm not going to talk about it too much here, but we do try to get to the environmental lifestyle things that are the root cause of whatever it is you're dealing with. So it's important to realize that the prescription drug, you might need to be on it. We're not saying to go throw your medication in the toilet. You very well may need to be on it, but it's important to be incorporating other things that really get to the root cause and are scientifically proven to get to the root cause, instead of just relying on prescription medication, which from the numbers that we're seeing don't seem to be very effective in curing anything. They're just treating symptoms. So what do you recommend someone do right now who's maybe on prescription medication to help create a buffer between what that medication is doing, inside of them and from where they want to be? What should they be implementing right now?
You mean implementing in their lifestyle or implementing in what way?
Yeah, I mean, natural recommendations, alternatives that they can be doing right now. I know we talk a lot about them, but just what are a few things they could do right now to maybe bypass some of these symptoms and side effects of prescription medication?
Yes, well, I think one thing that always would be a primary directive is to fix the issues surrounding the circadian rhythm. So look at our videos on circadian rhythm. Everyone probably, no one I've met yet in 37 years of practicing medicine can get away with breaking those rules of nature forever. A lot of people break them for a long time. I broke them for 58 years. It finally caught up with me. But I would say the issues around circadian rhythm, getting outdoors, connected to the earth and connected to sunshine every day, and then mitigating the fake light in your environment. I'd say that's number one that probably everyone should do. It's easy, it's safe, it's completely free. It does take some effort. You have to change, but it's kind of like when you first inject heroin, you get addicted to it really quickly. Well, when you get in the sunshine releases our internal heroin. It's called beta endorphin, and beta endorphin makes us addicted to the sun. So it doesn't take long if you get back out in the sun, which was one big step in fixing your circadian rhythm. And the other big step is not letting the alien light of our modern technology enter your eyes at night, because that screws up the circadian rhythm big time. And
Oh, looks like we lost my dad there, but just to recap, go check out our videos on circadian rhythm. There's also a video called 10 cutting edge health protocols that your doctor will never tell you. Go check out that. I'll put a link in the description. That covers our 10 most important protocols, most of which are free, that you should start implementing in your life right now. That way, if you are on prescription medication, you can be mitigating some of those side effects with these natural alternative protocols. So go check those out. If you are interested in working with my dad and I, as well as our team of experts, to help you get your health and wellness, mind, body, and spirit optimized, check out the link where you can learn a little bit more about that. If not, just keep watching the free stuff and make sure you go implement it. Dad, I don't know if you can hear me, but thanks for the time today. We'll see you guys on the next video.